So 100 horsepower represents a bit of a threshold above which bikes start to get seriously quick, but can you still afford one if you're on a bit of a budget? Well, in today's video I'm going to run through 10 of the most affordable options currently on the market, in price order descending, and I have to say there were a few surprises in there when I researched this video. Starting with the VStrom 1050, I wasn't expecting an adventure bike to make the cut, but here we have it. £9,999 for this base model, and you get 106 horsepower at 8,500 RPM from its 1037cc V-twin. Now, it won't be the quickest bike on the list, being an adventure tourer with a 236 kilogram curb weight, but it still looks like decent-ish value if adventure bikes are your kind of thing. I guess the big limiting factor is that the spec is pretty modest, and if you want more features you'd have to look up the range at the XT version. Now that gets you some tubeless spoke wheels, handguards, engine bars, a center stand, and loads more electronics like cruise control, cornering ABS, combined braking, and hill hold, all for an extra 1,700 quid. But now we're talking 11,700 quid, which does open up a lot of options from the competition. Now, another surprise entry comes in the form of the VFR 800F from Honda, because I kind of forgotten about this bike. Yet it makes 104 horses at 10,250 RPM from its 782cc 90-degree V4. And like the VStrom, it comes in at just £9,999. Now, it's been a good while since it was introduced, so it doesn't really get the latest and greatest in terms of tech, but if you want an awesome V4 engine, solid equipment choices, and I'd argue a handsome looking package, then it kinda still does the job. The only problem is that I believe it's to be discontinued from 2021 owing to Euro 5 emissions regulations, which it can't pass. Yet it's still listed as a current model on the Honda UK website, so they might still be knocking around in dealers. So I guess if you want one, you better make it happen sharpish. Another bike destined for the same fate is the Kawasaki ZX6R. Kawasaki confirmed they won't be updating it to meet Euro 5, and so your best bet is to try and grab a 2020 bike from dealers ASAP. And it could well be worth it, for this is the most powerful bike on the list, with 128 horsepower produced at 13,500 RPM from a sprightly 636cc inline 4. For £9,699 you can get a black one, although realistically Kawasaki's have to have at least a little bit of green, so you might be better off budgeting an extra couple of hundred quid. Supersports like this are basically extinct now. The R6, for example, is only sold for track use. We no longer have the CBR 600RR, and the Triumph Daytona bowed out with the Moto 2 version. They just don't sell in the numbers required to make them worthwhile for manufacturers, so this could well be your last chance to own a slice of the Revy 600 action. From here on in, it's naked bikes, and one of the best, in my humble opinion, is the KTM 890 Duke. 115 horsepower at 9,000 revs from a peachy parallel twin, and all in a package that's built to handle. WP Apex suspension is sweetly set up, and brakes come in the form of their own brand 4-pot radial calipers on 300mm discs. It's nice and light at 169 kilograms dry, and tech is on point too, with plenty of modes and rider rates managed through the TFT dash. Temptation does lie with the R model though, with more power, Brembo calipers on bigger discs, flatter bars for a more sporty position, and a pop-in paint job as well, all for an extra grand. This was hands down, from a pure riding perspective, my favourite bike that I borrowed in the whole of 2020. Now, next up we've got the only retro on the list, and you know that I love a retro. The XSR 900 puts out 113 horsepower at 10,000 RPM from its inline triple, and can be yours now for just £9,502. And just look at it, a beauty of a bike, but it's quick as well, being based upon their MT09 Sports Naked. But the thing is, the MT09 got a massive update for 2021 with more torque, less weight, a whole bunch of new electronics, and some striking new looks. The XSR though, it's still to get an update, and so I'm not sure I'd be happy paying the extra versus the MT09 for essentially a retro body kit on a slightly outdated platform, unless you can can use that to get a good price on one, of course. Now, it wouldn't be a list of sporty affordable bikes without a street triple, having set the standard for many years. In this R model, you'll get 116 horsepower at 12,000 RPM from a 765cc inline triple. The spec is pretty sweet elsewhere too, with a fully adjustable fork and shock, both from Showa, and Brembo's M4.32 brake calipers hauling things up at the front. It gets a few nice standard features like the quick shifter and riding modes, but if you want the full list of goodies, you'll have to find an extra 1,400 quid for the RS. That'll get you a TFT dash with phone connectivity, an Olin shock, Brembo M50 brakes, and a couple of extra riding modes. So we're getting to the sharp end of the list here, and it's getting pretty serious with the Kawasaki Z900 up at 123 horsepower and costing just a smidge over 9 grand. That's a lot of bang for your buck, and it's pretty well spec'd elsewhere. There's a TFT dash with phone connectivity, 3 riding modes, power mode selection, LED lighting, some rebound and preload adjustability in the fork and shock, and all in a fairly slender package at 212 kilograms curb. Now, Kawasaki styling does seem to be a bit divisive, and it's certainly a busy, aggressive looking bike, but for this genre I think it works pretty well, and I do like this black one with the little pops of green. Now, I've got to be honest, I've not ridden this one, so I can't comment too much, but it's certainly on the list for this year. Top 3 now, and we've got the 2021 MT09 with a handy peak power of 117 horses and an extremely tempting price of 9 grand. It's basically had a ground up redesign for this model year, and the result is pretty spectacular. The triple cylinder engine is a beaut, and it delivers a heck of a soundtrack even with the stock exhaust. Suspension is improved, braking is on point, you get lean sensitive rider aids and a TFT dash, and when you look at the price, it's really very good value for money. So much so that I was kind of expecting it to be the top of the tree when I put this list together. But no, 2 bikes beat it, the first being the BMW F900R. Now, I borrowed this bike last year and it didn't quite light my fire in the same way as the MT09, but it's still a solid performer with bags of features at a proper good price. 105 horsepower from a parallel twin and about 650 quid cheaper than the Yamaha. In this most basic form, you get a proper good TFT dash, a couple of riding modes, LED lighting all round, and decent suspension and brakes in the form of an upside down 43mm fork, preload and rebound adjustable shock, and a pair of radial Brembos for stopping duties. If tech is your thing, then you might want to look at the SE variant at just under 9.5 grand. That gets you an adaptive cornering headlight, daytime running light, extra riding modes and settings, a quick shifter, and a dynamic electronically adjustable shock. That's a heck of a lot of tech for your cash. Now, I've got to say, I wasn't really expecting a BMW to make the top 2. That's super competitive, but it's still not enough to beat Suzuki's GSXS750. 112 horsepower for under 8 grand is always going to be a big ask. I mean, elsewhere it is pretty basic with just traction control, low RPM assist, and an easy start system as the technological highlights, but an upside down fork and radial brakes ought to contribute to a decent ride on top of that peaky power made by the 749cc inline 4. Now, like the Z900, it's one of the few bikes on this list that I'm yet to ride, but on paper, would I take it over the competition? It's the MT09 that looks to be the pick of the bunch for me, with bags of features, a brilliant engine, and a decent chassis at not much more money. But as always, I'd love to know your pick down in the comments below. There are loads of great bikes here, so which one would you take home if it was your own cash? And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.